So Valentine's in Australia. Is it as gimmicky as it here in the States?
I'm sure. I'm sure for some it is. I'm sure for some it is. Uh, Australians in general are apathetic towards most things.
Fair.
So it's only the diehard sort of desperados who are like, we're doing something for Valentine's Day. Well, the diehard desperado wives and girlfriends, because I'm fairly sure there isn't a single Australian male that could give
Yeah,
two
fair.
thoughts to Valentine's Day. And, if you need a day to show your loved ones, you know what I mean? That was always my go-to when I was in
hmm
relationships. Every
hmm
day is
hmm
Valentine's Day.
Okay,
We should probably get the last episode of the season underway. What do you think?
let's do it.
Roll those credits. From Sydney, Australia, all the way to Portland, USA, two misfits hang out after class to riff on the B-sides of professional life. These are your professional misfits. All the way from Sydney, Australia, I am your host, Christopher Sellers.
I'm from Portland, Oregon. I'm Broedy Ipox.
And we are your professional misfits. We riff on the B-sides of professional life. And here we are, Misfits, episode 10, final episode of season 3. We're going to wrap it up all for you now. The highs, the lows, the creamy middles. Broedy, how you doing? You made it through another season. We're at least at 40 episodes of real episodes, not including shorts and clips and socials and all of that. So
hmm
how's Brody's day-to-day? Because you're also expecting your first daughter any minute now. So give us the recap on life.
Yeah, this season's been. I think next season will be more of a handful than this one was. Like this one was kind of like the preparatory season. Like I got to. She's pregnant the entire time, so I don't have the baby yet, and
Right.
the business was also kind of just in its infancy as well. And it's like I'll
We'll talk
watch
about
the
that. Yeah.
right, and I'll watch the business grow a little bit older as my infant comes into the world. So I think it'll be I think it'll be interesting next season. This season was good. It was good. This we knocked this out and it felt good and put a business behind it. So yeah, I'm happy with where we're at.
Are you?
Did someone just get ransacked in your hallway? What was that?
No, that was a truck going down the street.
Okay.
It's so again, like behind the scenes for everyone watching and listening. It's like I'm obviously in Sydney. We're in the middle of summer, and it's one of those stupid hot, humid days. And so I got like a little fan going, and I said to Brody, "Can you hear that?" He's like, "Nah, can you hear my heater?" Because apparently in Portland it's midwinter and unseasonably frosty. So that's the realities. And so yeah, all my windows are open because I need that breeze, bruh. I don't have aircon, and I'm sweating like a disgusting individual. So I'm just trying to keep it kosher. Okay, so it's funny because you seem pretty chilled about how our progress and where we've arrived at for season 3. And one of the questions I've got here to ask you is how are you feeling about it? And are we where you thought we would be or should be or could be? You know what I mean? Like, let's have the influencer podcast discussion. Like, we're 40 episodes deep. How are we sitting?
Yeah. Jesus. Okay. So there's like two sides to that coin. I mean, I'm proud of where we're at because the things that are happening and the things that we've accomplished are big and in the grand scheme of things. And I think the general example, we're moving a lot quicker than people normally do. So
Okay.
that makes me feel good. But because of that, I know that we could have done it sooner, and that was partly on me. And that's a tough thing to come to grips with. You know what I mean? To sit with and really look at and go, oh shit, look at the progress we're making now. And that was just a few tweaks to consistency. So that could have happened very easily in the beginning of the season, but for whatever reason, towards the end, caught caught the breath of wind that I needed. But
I
yeah,
think
I'd
I don't
say
know. Yeah, go
go
on.
ahead. No, go
No,
ahead.
so like I hear you, I get it, but I often, again, it's sort of that hindsight, 2020 hindsight, right? Like, oh, had we discovered the thing, all the way back then.
No, but look, that's the only reason that I don't feel bad about bringing this up as an example for that kind of reason, that it doesn't fall under that category because it's not something that I discovered. It's something that I knew, something that you and I both knew. We had
Mm,
actually had that conversation at the end of season 2 where I think you had said to me, if we can just set up 30 days that's just consistent dialed in effort, I believe that I would see those changes as well.
mm.
And you know, that's yeah, again, that's not something new that we discovered. It's not like we figured out the editing trick that works for our videos. It's not the
The magic SEO
right,
hack, the secret
right.
YouTube algorithm.
No, which doesn't exist. So like, and again, knowing all that shit, I should have just put the pedal to the metal sooner, for both of our sakes. I mean, for the business, for the podcast, and I mean, really to show the Misfits too. And again, that's the only, I'd say, regret that I have this season is that now watching it come into the tail end where we're getting to 25,000 views on YouTube, we're growing, the channel's growing, subscribers are coming in, comments are coming in like crazy. People are engaging. It's starting to do what we knew it was going to do. That's frustrating because that could have happened at episode 1. You know what I mean? So it's a tough bullet to bite, but that's the reality of it.
It is what it is. It is what it is. Yeah, so yes, it's interesting because I some friends hit me up about the podcast the other day, and then because they listen to it on Spotify, and I said something about YouTube, and it's like, oh, it's on YouTube too. I'm like, yeah, yeah, hun. So for those, if like whatever platform that you're listening on, like here's the breakdown. So we'll record, and it's unedited. It's just one shot stream of consciousness
Okay.
discussion, riffing on all the things, and that'll go directly to YouTube, like edited. If you're watching on YouTube, how it is now. But we'll pull the audio, and that goes to Spotify, and then Broedy will do all the work in the back end to chop up all the clips and social content that goes to TikTok and Insta, so you can find us all there as well. It also goes to LinkedIn, so that's where most of our clients are starting to find us. So these are all the platforms that we're working with, but we're working with them in very specific ways because they appeal to different audiences. And part of the challenge
Exactly.
for us in wanting to build it this way is like to not spend a dime on ad spend and marketing. Like if it's going to be social content and if it's going to be sustainable and last, then this is the way that we wanted to go about it and grow it organically. And you've just had a thought bubble. So what's your thought bubble?
Yeah, well, I had an example that I wanted to bring to the podcast. So I think one of the things that I think a lot of people are under the misconception of is that if you have to have a large following, you have to have a previous funnel to accomplish what we are, right? And it's
I have
simply
that misconception.
you do,
Yes, I
you
do.
do. And it's a fallacy. So I found a podcast on Instagram and TikTok. The content creator is about 500,000 followers. Okay, 500,000 followers. Generates quite a bit of views throughout his content. I'd say in the average range of 50,000 to 100,000 views, which is pretty fucking great. That's a lot of fucking
Yep.
eyes on your shit.
Yep.
I went to both of his podcasts, and one of his podcasts is Off the Cuff. This is Danny Lepore. He's Instagram, Facebook, all the stuff. You can find him, and his podcast has 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. Chris, 10,000 subscribers. Okay, now if we go and look at his long form videos, we're averaging more views than he is, and our episodes are longer than his are. That's kind of in retrospect what people don't see. What they do see is someone with 300,000 followers on Instagram, and then they go and find their YouTube and they're like, wow, they only have 200 subscribers, but holy shit, they have a ton of views. They're getting that engagement. And then you're under the conception that funnel is the key, is the access, the gateway to that success. And it's just, again, it's simply not true. It doesn't work for everyone, because again, a lot of audiences are generated outside of this form of media. I don't want to listen to somebody that I was looking at on TikTok and consuming 30-second clips of in a comedic, skit-driven way. Now go talk for an hour about something that the skits don't even have anything to do with. So it's much harder than people think. And again, we've done this too with zero ad spend. And what I've seen with a lot of these creators is, what creators will do is they look at social media, they look at brand deals and sponsorships as I'd say more expendable income, right? It's not a job per se yet, because it hasn't generated that much. So then what they'll do is they'll reinvest that into the show, whether that be through ads or a bunch of different things. Most of the time it's paid adverts. And it just, again, it goes to testament that it doesn't work like that. People don't consume this type of media or generate a real relationship with a content creator off a fucking ad. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And because you've got a marketing agency that's chirping in your ear that we can get you 700,000 impressions. Again, people, we're not
X metrics for this many dollars.
Right. And the metrics we're talking about are pure vanity. Pure vanity. We're not talking about conversion. And if they do guarantee conversion, you know what they also guarantee? That if they can't convert, that they'll give you your money back. And 9 times out of 10, you'll probably see your money back. It's just
and worst case, when you stop paying them, then you get churn.
Yep. It's over immediately. It's not a sustainable model. It's these guys in the back end running X amount of ads to get to that point.
It's like that. So having a little bit of awareness of the startup world for myself at the moment, it's the sort of difference between the valuation of a company, the revenue of the company, and then the actual profit, right? And so there's a million stories that you could all probably have like on hand of like X company, WeWork is valued at X many billion. And you're like, okay. But they'd been burning millions since its inception because the business model was fundamentally flawed. Not quite a pyramid scheme, but pretty fucking close to it. And all these sorts of things. And then, of course, they go bankrupt. So whether it's 5 or 10 years or 15 years, it was never profitable. And so how much money has been literally burned to keep this thing upright, right? And then the second is revenue. You can look at certain businesses and like, well, we've done 15 million in revenue. Cool. How much of that is actual profit? It's like, well, we're running at a deficit. Like, what? So now, but this is why
that is more common than it is not.
Well, this is why it blows my mind. I was about to say, because so I'm not a business kid. I come from an arts background, but the cool thing about being an artist is you get used to being poor. So if if I get $100 this week, I can only spend $100. In fact, it would be savvy, Chris, to spend 80 and have 20 just in case. And then if we get in the next week and we got whatever, so you're hustling for what you get, and it's math in, math out. And so it staggers me sort of now stepping into the tech startup space and all this sort of stuff. The money that's available and just thrown around, the valuations of X, Y, and Z, how you can potentially then leverage a valuation for more investment, which makes no sense to me. So I have a unicorn. Do you really? Yeah. We think it's great. Like, we think it's a unicorn. So can you lend us 100 million and then we can have 2 unicorns? Like, it makes.
The way that I relate it to business is the vanity metrics, right? When you look at exactly the valuations that people use and bring on paper, that is a fucking vanity metric, my guy. Like, we're not there. Let's look at the actual financial model of the business and look at, like you said, profit and let's just profit in alone. So that's that overhead out aside, everything paid for. What are we left with at the end of the day? And again, I think you'd be wildly surprised at how many businesses are in the red, and it's like, and then they go and fucking post on Facebook that we'll get you 50 clients and bro, you don't have 50 clients in 3 seconds. Stop telling people you're gonna do that. So yeah, let's not go too deep here. I'm curious how you feel then, like, with that kind of little back and forth then with season 3, and so, don't pull any punches, just
no, I wasn't gonna.
Okay.
So if the question was like, how are you feeling at the end of season 3, and are we where we thought we would be, and all this sort of stuff? So my short answer is no. I don't. But I'm okay. How am I feeling? I'm feeling okay. Like I think you asked me midway through this season, how do you think it's gonna look? And I'm like, man, this is a breeze. Like season 2 was 20 episodes.
That's right? A gauntlet. Yeah,
a beast. We got through it, and then from that we learned we're going to do 10 episode seasons. Thanks. And so this feels nice and neat and tidy, and I can structure our episode seasons better, and so you guys get more fresh and relevant content, and like rah 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 rah. So that makes my life easier, production wise. Getting through it so much easier in my mind. So that's fine. So again, for the misfits at home, like I'm never really happy with the metrics, but that's because I'm naive and ignorant to how the beast works. So a lot of our production meetings is me saying, "Hey Broedy, can I be a dumb client?" And he goes, "Yes, absolutely." I'm like, "Cool. Why, if we've done 30, 40 episodes, do we not even have 100 subscribers? Like, the fuck is that?" Or like, and we've only got like, at the time right now, I could tell you is about 101 on Facebook followers. There's about 311 on LinkedIn. There's some solid Spotify streams. YouTube is currently 77 subscribers. So as me, as an amateur, as Joe Public, coming to the channel, which has been hyped by everyone and all that sort of shit.
That's what I was going to say. I don't think it's straight naivety. I think it's more the norm to not have the inside look at this kind of thing.
Right. And so my first question, my first impression is sort of disgruntled and like, what the fuck? But I'll ask the question, and Broedy will give me a rationale, and I'm still like growing slowly, doing it differently. Like we've built a model that should generate profit. So that means valuation and revenue isn't like an immediate hockey stick, right? So and I'm impatient, and we've had great guests, especially this season. Like April was an absolute gem. Tyler was the man. Everyone that's come on has been a baller, and they've been really significant conversations, actually, and I think timely. But I'm seldom pleased in complacency, and that's part of my problem as well. Like even if we hit a whole bunch of metrics and signed this sponsor and did whatever else, I'd still look to Broedy and go, okay, what's next? I personally and professionally need to learn where the plateau is.
No. What? Oh, yeah. God. No.
Well, I need, but you know what I mean. Like in music,
I do know what you mean.
It's 5, 6, 7, 8 downbeat step. Like it's
right.
And I always miss the downbeat. That's the point. Like there's a natural reprieve.
Okay, that's a much better analogy. Right. Okay, yeah. Well, I think to your sake and to everybody else's though. Again, that's not your fault though. It's kind of like for instance, like April said in that episode about diversity and inclusion, you think about that subject itself and you immediately get overwhelmed. Immediately. And it's because of all the noise that is attached to that subject. It's the same thing with social media. You have no clear view. You have no clear view. You have motherfuckers saying that they did this overnight. You have people saying that they did it in a day. You have people saying it takes 3 months. You have people saying it takes 5 years. You have people. There's no
or 100 episodes or 100 hours or
and there's no clear definition. There's not. There's really not. So for anybody that has spent time in it like I have, knowing that, but then being able to apply the indicators to the situations that you do know, that's the key, right? Like, and that's when you make the moves and that's when you make the changes. Like, one of the things that brought up for me when you said that, the guests this season have been absolute bangers. I got to be
Mm.
real with you. I think a big fall down is on our part. And I said this to you kind of early in season 3, where it's like, I think I'd like to be getting them more and at a much earlier rate. And just so you guys know, the Misfits, this is me and Chris, like top and bottom, everything we do front to back, this is me and Chris. So
Mm.
anybody that knows even chopping social media clips or editing a podcast episode, you know
Building a
what
website. Yeah.
building holy shit, you know what goes into that. So we're doing all this stuff, trying to make these changes and tweaks in real time and really tactfully, so it's not reactionary, it's more with intention. And
Mm.
one of the things I think I'd again like to do is get the guests more of the content from the episodes so they have more of an opportunity to speak on it. I think I'd also like to get guests that are more involved in the collaborations they set. So I think one of the things that happens in social media is we kind of set it and forget it. When it's a collaboration, it's someone else's responsibility, and my part was to show up. Um, yes and no. I think if you're going to involve yourself in any endeavor or conversation, it can also bolster what you're doing. So to be a podcast guest on 5 different podcasts in a year, that's an accomplishment that not a lot of people achieve. And if you're talking and advertising in that sense, you're going to attract more podcasts. And again, the ROI on that is kind of indefinite. You can turn that into whatever the fuck you want it to be. So I think having a clear, and I don't want to say expectation because that sounds really shitty, but
Mm.
like a, a, a clear expectation with our guests that, hey, look, we're going to get you this, and we're hoping that you have X amount of time to talk about it. You know, each of these episodes is important. When we bring in guests, we really hope to involve your guys' networks into what the Misfits are. And look, again, if you're joining the show, I think you get it. And I think you are part of that bubble as well. So they're your people too, you know. So that's just my initial thought when you said that. And we're looking at new guests and bigger things for season 4 and 5, and that's gonna be cool. I think that's gonna be a part of it too.
Mm. Mm.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
S- yeah. So now that, look, by the time this episode comes out, excuse me, by the time this episode comes out, it'll be March.
Mhm.
It'll be March 2024. Um, and I know at the beginning of this season, I kind of called my shot of, well, I want to be digital nomad and doing this and doing that. And then with a few other sort of changes, well, my timeline was optimistically short, and some other things that have developed. So unless something major comes through by March, it's unlikely I'll probably still be in the country. So, like, personally, I'm a little bit frustrated that I keep teeing these goals up for myself and not being able to fulfill them because I don't like that feeling. But at the same time, both the things that I'm building in real time are so much larger and grander and have more moving parts and international communities. So I might just have to be a little bit patient before I can pack all my shit and get on a plane.
Well, I mean, like you said, I wouldn't count your ducks yet, but just I think again, for anybody listening, I think that is life, though. You know what I mean? And look, I mean, realistically, you call the shot, right? And our all of our hopes are that the vision board looks exactly like the result, right? That's fucking that's a
Mm,
little naive. That's a little naive. And I'm not saying you're being naive. I think anybody that lives in
no.
that space, that's a little naive. But
Well, I also sorry, I'll let you finish, please.
I just want to say that I think outside of that kind of aspect of it, a lot of it has to do with And again, I don't like being reactionary, but being good at being reactionary. Because, like you said, I think with what you're building now, if you were to set the eyes on that particular goal, the nomad lifestyle, I believe that you could obtain it by April. I think the client space that we'll have by April, I think the things that are coming, I think you'll be able to achieve that. I don't know if any of the things would have the space that you're looking for them, though. I think you would start to live in that goal, the traveling part, and you've got a lot coming up, my friend. You've got you've got a lot coming up, you know what I mean? So it's like you said, having to take a second to be like, okay, this is actually achievable still by April. I'm just choosing that I'm not, like that's a much different narrative than I can't,
Yeah,
because
or it's a failure. I
right,
agree. I hear you. I think I'm a big fan of one of my favorite phrases is like change begets change. So long as you are trying, you're pursuing whatever you pick your light at the end of the tunnel. You don't wait to find it.
right,
You
right,
pick it, and then you actively try to work towards it. Sometimes you get pushed left, sometimes you get pushed right, but momentum and forward motion is always the key. So whether it's literally fulfilling the goal in the way that you want to fulfill it, that's fantastic. But don't let any sort of detours undermine your progress, because of course the complete opposite to this sort of approach is, well, if I can't hit the vision board exactly in the way that I want to hit the vision board, I won't do the vision board. And there are people like that. They'll lay out their list 1 to 10. This is what I need, like relationships, professional lives, like name it, travel, name it. Unless I can do it exactly in this way. And that's a control thing, obviously.
hmm
And as we all would have learned, at least this season, is you don't always get to control all the things and all the people in the way that you want to, and adapting is a creative skill by my book. So so that's at. Have you got any notes on your pieces of paper that you wanted to talk about for this wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things. Like one of the other things that I wanted to ask you is looking back, right? We've done season 1, season 2, this is season 3. That's 40 episodes. Do you have, and I ask you this at the end of every season, but do you have a favorite moment of this season so far? Because I'll be honest with you, I go through and I edit episodes, I do the things, I chop things up, I see media for episodes that have come out, so they get re-brought up. And
Right.
I was just doing some stuff for the episode prior to this, 9, the Misfit Survival Guide, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and it was just, yeah. So I'm curious for you if there's either an episode or a moment or something that's just stood out for this season in particular that's like, this has been a win for me.
Again, I'll be boring and say, look, nothing really specific, but I'm consistently proud of the work that we're doing and the conversations that we're having. Like when you asked me, my first impression was like, oh, April coming on. So, and to talk about a Black woman's experience of diversity and inclusion, and no, it's not everything that it's cracked up to be, and we've sort of got it horribly wrong, and can't we do things instead? I think it's a really, really valuable conversation, and she was fresh and funny, and I love her dearly. So shout out to April. So it was fun, it was informative, we all learned a bit, and we could ask the questions that we wanted to in a space that was conducive to that. And then you got Tyler, like, hey, like, when should we choose violence? Because they say it's always a bad thing. And go, well, actually, no, sometimes it's required. And so as men, we can sit around and have a sober, no dick swinging conversation around what is the impression of violence in society and what is our role in it, for instance. Then we've got Dana and Angela on the girl code, right? Who gives us a completely different perspective from anything that we could conceive of. So, and then there's all our individual episodes as well. So it's not, it's I'd say season 3 is the highlight, because it was sort of a level up from season 2, and I'm sure season 4 will be the same. But if I had to go back, and I don't go back and listen to them after we've recorded them, but if I had to, not yet. Okay, there's probably only one episode in all of them that we've done that I've gone, wasn't what I thought it would be.
Really? What?
You know who it is. I'm not going to out them, but unfortunately, it was one with a guest. There you go. They're the penny drops. So everyone on Spotify, go and watch Brody's reaction on YouTube.
Okay.
So, it was hyped. We thought it'd be a banger, and then it was a good topic, and it just didn't snap in the way. But hey, that's what happens on live theater, folks. That's how it goes.
Right.
So, yeah, no, and I'll stand by any of the conversations that we've had up until this point. How about you? Any gem moments?
I'm not going to echo. I wouldn't say that it's just season 3 for me as a whole. I think it is kind of the guest conversations. I don't feel like we've done it differently than in the past, but I feel like our style is consistently evolving into itself. Like, we've got a style, and it's there, and it happens, and it's natural. It's just becoming more and more natural. So the guest that came on this season, it just felt that way. The goal that we set out to have a living room kind of conversation with some really smart people in a guards down kind of way is working. And that to me is the highlight. So the April and Tyler and Angela and Dana, it's all been something to where I didn't come into the conversation with this notion of structure. It was still a conversation. And I think that's the most valuable piece, because I think in this medium, especially podcasting, it is an interview style that people adopt, and it's a Q&A back and forth.
It can be. It's yeah.
And I don't think people get what most people think they are from that style. I don't, and I think a lot of people.
It comes across like a job interview.
It does, totally.
For me.
Yeah.
And it's like, so what, in your, or it's like straight up, like, tell us about the book that you've written, or tell us about the role that you've just taken with this and that.
Yeah. And I don't want to say scripted, because I know a lot of it's not, but that is almost the persona that you get behind each of the answers. Because look, when it's in such a structured way, you do have default answers. You do have scripted answers that your brain has been waiting and processing and mulling over and chewing, that you will regurgitate time and time again. It's like the guy that fucking got attacked by the bear. By the time he's been asked fucking the 400th time, he might not even actually remember the story. He's just regurgitating what he fucking knows to say. We don't do that. And it's a lot rarer than people think. And it's funny, because I've had a couple of people this season, they're like, oh, you guys are like the Joe Rogan of real life. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, instead of conspiracy series, it's conversations about thought patterns and behaviors and emotions. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I get it. But that's where people are wrong too, in that sense. Like, with the thing with Joe Rogan, or you look at true crime or anything like that, there's not a lot of people out there just having a conversation. It needs a literal topic, and not one that's loose that we can all have individual experiences with. Fucking something that's like, oh, aliens do or don't exist, what do you think? Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, that's not the same thing that we're doing here. And I think what's nice, and I guess to wrap that answer up, is like, that's what's felt the best for me as season 3, is that starting to come across. People are going, holy shit, yeah, I get it. I get what you guys are doing.
I'd agree. I think one of the nicest compliments we consistently get is, like, it didn't feel like a podcast, because people are professionals. Because the majority of our guests, like, we pull from LinkedIn, because that's and they come on and hopefully they've got a bit of an idea about us, but it's not this Q&A. Hey, tell us about your experience, Tyler, and what was it like shooting people, and like in the army, did you find that leadership was, the fuck? It was just, hey man, is it, as a civilian, it's like this, what's it like in the military, and what's the impression, and how does your missus feel about it? And everyone's in sort of relaxed. I think that's been the nicest, and that's been consistent over 3 seasons, is that now that I think people are starting to understand who we are and what we do and what the whole vibe's about. Same with an audience, you're filtering those who aren't in the mood to talk about it, and now starting to attract those who do want deeper, longer conversations. Fun fact for everyone at home, like Broedy and I recently had a chat in one of the production meetings of like, well, if our sort of watch rate is, the first 20 something minutes, 27 minutes of an episode, like, do we reduce episodes to half an hour? And so we thought about it, and secretly I wasn't a huge fan, because it's because everyone does it.
It's secret. He did not come at me. He did not come at me for it. He was very posh. I
took it on board. I did. I took it on board and thought, well, that's my first impression, sure, but let's sit on it. Let's chew on it and let's see how it goes. And of course, I'll watch some stuff during a week or two. And the majority of content on YouTube, podcasts or otherwise, is sub half an hour. Longer form video essays and podcasts are a little bit more rare, but that's sort of also where we started out. Like, if you want to have real conversations about things and really explore the ins and outs of any topic, like, you're going to need more, I think, than half an hour, especially if you bring a guest on. So I sort of quietly sat with that for about 2 weeks or whatever. And then recently, only this week, Brody's doing the back end analytics, and he's like, fun fact, all the percentages and watch time and sort of everything has sort of spiked, and we're getting much longer attention on all these sort of videos, and like, here's a bunch more subscribers and everything else, which sort of, for the first time for me, after earlier in this episode expressing my disappointment of where we were, is a little green flag of what we set out to do in the beginning is now starting to snowball, because we were consistent. We knew who we wanted to talk to. We knew how we wanted to talk to you guys, basically. We didn't want to do like the top spicy takes on any given topic and smash it out in 30 minutes and go, thanks. We wanted to, let's really talk about diversity. Let's really talk about emotional intelligence. Let's really talk about sexual relationships, and get into it and explore the mess, because we seldom get the chance to. That's the point.
Yeah, and one of the things about exactly that that I've been excited about since season 1 is it's not even just a diversity in personalities. Like, I mean, fuck, dude, complete cultural diversity as well. We're on complete different sides of the world, complete different experiences, but it shows how much is a common thread. And I think for me, that was one of the most important things that I was trying to get through to people, that again, we're all fucking human beings, and I don't really care if you're Australian, Belgium, French. I don't care. If I can have a conversation with you in a place that, like you're saying, doesn't have bounds to it, where I'm stepping over rules or doing these things or trying to look out for time, it just is a much different. Yeah, it's just much different. And again, I think people are catching on to that. And that, to me, is the most important thing, that we haven't wavered on that. That, things. And what's funny is part of me thought, as we started to grow, that we were going to be pushed in a certain direction by the audience. They would be like, hey, Chris and Broedy, why don't you talk about Australia and America more? This is way too long, or whatever the hell it was. We've got nothing but support. I go over the YouTube comments, and I'm sure someone in this video will be a dickhead, but like, we've got pretty much nothing but support. We've said a few controversial things that have sparked conversations.
Only on YouTube Shorts. Only on YouTube Shorts
That's
they
true. That's true.
do they get reactionary and go, "This never happened."
Which I love you, Misfits, but that's why we make the shorts. Is we want a little bit of a reaction to get you guys to the episodes, and if it's out of context or out of pocket, know that that was on purpose, please.
Most
Like,
shorts are.
for fuck's sake, right? Like, for fuck's sakes, most short form content is completely out of pocket. Don't the way that they chop up even Joe Rogan's clips where he's like talking to a guest and they'll take like 5 different sound bits where he's like in completely different conversations, but it'll be like, I hate you. I want to stab you. I'm going to kill you. What do you
Throw in a few memes and you're sweet.
And it's perfect. And there you go. But you guys can't handle something that most of the time I do have an end and beginning point to the clips. They're not completely ridiculous. So
what's coming up for season 4, bro?
Season 4, I'm glad you asked. I'm excited. I think we've got to step up in the way that we're strategizing for guests, which I think is a big thing that a lot of podcasts miss. I think they hit their lane or their niche and they're comfortable and they're getting a lot of yeses, right? Yes, I'll come on the podcast. Yes, I'll have the conversation. Yes, that sounds great. And again, there's not a lot of conversion behind that though. And I think you and I, you said it, and it's been stuck in my brain since. We should be punching for more no's, and that's kind of my intention with guests. So I've got a list. I'm sure you've got a list. That's going to be something for, I think, season 4 and 5. That's going to be a little bit different because not that we haven't had great guests that have much higher reach than we do in our own individual presence, but again, not anybody outside of our network that would be driven to say no, and that's I'm excited about that. And then in particular, each season's had a different look and feel. That's one thing that I'm excited about from you, so like you can answer and speak on that in a second. From me, I know the social media content's going to change just a smidge to be a little bit more optimized for you guys as it rolls out, because we'll optimize after the fact, but I want everything to be neat and buttoned up as we go. So every time an episode comes out, you guys will get 3 pieces of content directly tied to the episode immediately following those days, and it will be connected and you'll be able to click buttons and it'll lead you back to the long form content, because we've seen that have wild success for the videos as we're posting. So I post at kind of a drip feed now to keep the season and the engagement going. That is crazy because we'll post an episode for the week. We'll get our 20 to 30 loyal viewers, and then I'll be posting the clips from a couple episodes prior, and that episode will go up to 40, 50, 60 views. And it's like, okay, we're going to get that on track. So season 4 is going to look a lot tighter knit, I think, if anybody's looking in that kind of perspective. And to me too, what's going to come from that and the consistency we built with season 3 is just going to be everything that we've shot for. We're going to have more sponsorships. We're going to have more client work. We're going to have, I think my ultimate goal for season 4, and I'll call my shot here, is to have the passive streams of our revenue sources solid to where those things help us incur our own time to work on the other stuff. And
for the Misfits at home, what does that involve? Like little behind the scenes sneak peek.
Yeah. I mean, me and Chris have talked about this. I think when you're doing stuff like that, a lot of things that have worked in the past have come from company pages or paid adverts or things like that. We're not trying to move in that direction. So it needs to be a little bit more holistic. So somebody from me, or coming from me, where it's my experience and it's the things that I've learned. And then we have resources available and attached to each of those lessons or pieces of content that I'll produce for you guys in the back end. That's exactly how to build a podcast and do this thing for yourself, and I think the funny thing about me and Chris is we're doors wide open. We'll show you guys how we're building this thing in real time, give you the resources and the blueprints as we write them. These are fresh, these are new. We've thought of these are things we're actively working on for ourselves. And then you look at a lot of the things that have been produced in the past, and it's kind of this cookie cutter one size fits all solution that you could buy on 9 different people's pages. We're not doing that. These are very specific to the podcast, to the goals that we've set out for ourselves, for the business that we're building. We're not here to slough you shit and tell you that you buy one of these resources, you're going to be a fucking mega millionaire podcast. That's not, it doesn't say that anywhere in the website or in any disclosure. So, that's something that for you guys is going to be available, worked on, fine-tuned as well as part of the social media presence and kind of professionalism of season 4. And I think as I speak on it and you guys kind of get to see its relevancy, it'll mean more, right? I think just saying, hey, there's some resources about lighting and mics and scheduling and things like that is exactly what we're trying to avoid, so if I can get in there and tell you why it's important and what it's done for us and give you direct examples, for instance, the consistency thing, looking at a scheduling template that we have or is available, that kind of thing serves a purpose. And now going from 60 subscribers up to 77 and counting and building really actively, that's the burden of proof for it, so it's kind of cool too, because again, I think a lot of people in the past have used previous success in a model that's not relevant, right? So you might have 300,000 followers on Instagram, but now you're trying to teach someone how to build a podcast just because you had 300,000 followers on Instagram. And it's like, okay, we're in the trenches. We're here and we're doing this. And, we have a little bit more clear view than somebody who's got a studio team behind them because they had 300,000 followers and some shit to spend. So I think season 4 is going to be that. As much as season 3 was an eye-opener, I think for a lot of people that we're getting into and listening that, hey, these are real conversations that I just get to listen to and be a part of. It's the same thing for the business. I think a lot of people will start to see the example that we're trying to set and the things that we're trying to do. We're not trying to shove down your throat. This isn't a come buy my shit kind of thing. It's a, if this applies, it's available, and we're here to be those guys for you. So, yeah, that's my take on that. That was fucking long-winded. Holy shit, that's probably the most I've talked all season. Jesus Christ!
It is a wrap up. It is.
That was a good one.
It's funny though. Brody's talking about clients. The first entree that we had, the client sat down with us and sort of looked over his socials and platforms. And I said to him, "Like, you don't need a podcast. So, you could use all this stuff to develop other things, but you don't need a podcast." Anyway, that was funny.
And again, anybody coming in for client services or that listens to this side of it, one thing I want to say is like, that's another thing is you look at agencies, you look at freelancers, you look at contractors, a lot of the times they're in a survival space. And don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Me and Chris are surviving. We're trying to do this for our own benefits as well. Don't get it twisted. I'm just saying that we're going to shoot it to you straight. If it comes down to everything that you have is viable, but it just needs tweaking, we'll tell you that shit. And the podcast doesn't have to be the solution. I think that's more valuable than anything else is honesty at this point in time. I think a lot of people are just going to try to fit you into their system. And that's fucked up. So,
look, and if it is something that you're thinking about, if it is something you think about it like this, right? Rather than think of a podcast as another bit of media for your marketing, right? Because there's a few things you can do already. You can write a book, and I've written a book. You can do keynotes, you can write blogs and all those sorts of things. Yeah. You can be on LinkedIn, 14 hours a day. But at the end of the day, all of that marketing and that work and that time and money spent is to drive two things: is to demonstrate your expertise in order to attract clients and revenue, right? So our approach is, you can do all of those things in a podcast, great, or you can have a podcast fulfill all of this for you, because nothing else is going to demonstrate expertise like you speaking on your expertise. You know, a keynote is at best an hour long if you're on the main stage. A podcast episode can be as long as you want, and you can have 10 of them. You can bring on whatever guests that you want, all those sorts of things. So our approach was, rather than make a podcast part of your marketing, make your podcast, like, leverage it to be the marketing tool and the most profitable tool, because you don't have to waste time and energy doing other things. But if that's your jam, that's our approach, and that's how we're doing it.
Well said, my friend. Well said.
I thought about it.
We put a little time and energy into this.
We do,
for sure.
We do. But like go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, anything else? Anything that
No, I was going to say the only other thing that's probably relevant to talk about, again, right at the end of the episode, is where things are at with my fintech.
Yes.
Yes. So for those that are playing along at home, or at least were there for last season's recap, and I might have mentioned that we were up for 100 million of investment with a VC platform that's supported by the UN. I can update folks that they're supposed to have we were told by our agent we're supposed to have a response by March, which is probably in about 2 weeks from recording, and this episode will be out in March. So who knows, right? Who knows? We've been waiting since October. Who knows? But the other positive thing is we were recently introduced to a guy in, well, he's in between France and the Arab Emirates, but basically a guy who his company builds financial platforms and interfaces for a lot of financial institutions in Europe. And we were introduced to him, pitched him the concept. He likes it. He wants to take it on as a project. Not only that, but he's willing to take on the build and then also take on the raising of investment, because he already has all of these contacts. And we've been talking to them for the last 2 weeks. And these have been really, really constructive discussions, so much so that this weekend coming, we'll be having our third meeting, and they're already laying out the roadmap to build, to brand, to get investment, who are going to be our early adopters and all those sorts of things. So it would be a very, very different business model from what Robbie and I had initially approached or had in mind. So let's say Robbie and I are founders. We get the 100 million investment from the UN. That's great. That we're now founders and we share equity with whoever's, brought in the money, for whatever it happens to be. It might even be a loan in their case. They might give you a 5-year loan to repay. Something to think about. On the other hand, we've got this team in Europe who are willing to build, raise investment, which would mean that we would basically take them on as founders as well.
Right. So
that's a different discussion, and I've already had my artist moment with Robbie about creative control and all of that. So, but this is behind the scenes. This is behind the scenes of a tech startup, and before it goes from overnight success to disrupting and changing the world, this is how the sausages are made, right? And these are the conversations that we have to have, and it's great that it's constructively progressing. And it was really, really refreshing for me, who designed this thing and laid it out, and sort of all the architecture in my head of how this is working, how it will be sustainable. Now to finally have a tech bro go, oh yeah, we can build that.
Yeah, validation.
So, right. It was no longer theory. It's like, yeah, I can build that. I can put my team together. It'll take about 4 or 5 months. So that was really validating and really sort of exciting in a way. And at the same time, I'm keeping all of this on lockdown because, like I said at the beginning of this episode, I hate calling shots and then not being able to fulfill. And I don't want to be one of those bros that talked on LinkedIn about all the hype. I want the results to be the hype. Then I'll drop my mic and say, I fucking told you so.
Well, I think that's, if I'm being honest with you, I think that's why I have such unwavering confidence that it's going to work out. Like, it's not a if thing, it's a when. And the reason being, because again, as much as you're very honest about needing the validation, that wasn't the intention. So I think a lot of people, when they get into the room, right? When I get into the room and I'm speaking on 100 million, that's enough, because I can leverage that. I can tell people about that.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the end. That's the end for most people, is just consistently getting into the room.
That's valuation.
Right. And you are not comfortable just getting into the room. You have to see something to the end. That's why I think it's a when thing, not an if. And yeah.
So there's the gossip, Misfits. That's what's happened during the course of this season. This is what's happened in the space of 2 weeks' time. It's funny that we both got the call from this VC platform and met with this project team all in 1 week.
It happens like that.
Yeah, right. I'm dying through December and January, and then everyone shows up in Feb. Go, hey, what's up? You motherfucker. So we'll see, and we'll see how this plays out. And then we'll be here being Misfits and sort of keeping you all invested. And I guess the one thing we forgot to talk about, and we should mention, is there's also Camp Misfit. So the way our Patreon works, folks, it's Camp Misfit, and there's 3 tiers. And the first tier is season 1, the video recordings of season 1, which were never supposed to be shown.
Never. It's
supposed to be audio only.
We've got some shit on there. If you look at how far we've come,
So for about $5 a month, you can check out the first 10 episodes. But there's some banger content in there. There is. You also get all of the episodes 2 weeks in advance, because we schedule our show. We know what we're doing, so we can release it this way. You can also get, the merch is on the website. I thought you were going to wear the merch today, so I didn't wear the merch. So you didn't wear it either.
Going to, but I've worn it so many episodes this season.
So you can get, let me try and hold it up. You get the sexy, I know that's going to be backwards on screen, but whatever, you get the vibe. It's very sexy. It's very elite. Everyone loves the tea. So you can get that. And there's a whole bunch of other bonuses you can get. And besides, you can support my caffeine addiction. You can support Brody's got a daughter coming. There you go. There's the guilt. Brody's got a daughter coming.
7,000 kids. I live in a shoe. Like, come on.
Right?
That's a fucking... Let's go.
That's Camp Misfit. That's Patreon. If you're listening to this wherever, if you want to like and support and subscribe the channel, that'd be cool. If you want to hang out in the comments, that'd be even greater, because likes and subscribers is cool and all. We really want to have the conversations and ask you guys what you think. So that's where it's at for us. You can come find us on LinkedIn and follow all the other professional stuff, but do whatever you want to do. But that's where we're at. That's where we're going. That's what's going on. We hope you've enjoyed the ride so far.
Buckle up.
Buckle up.
We're going to keep going.